Egypt's new Horn of Africa moves anger Ethiopia. Ethiopia has renewed its criticism of Egypt and Eritrea, coinciding with Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki's visit to Cairo and his meeting with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, accusing both countries of undermining regional stability. The Ethiopian news agency, ENA, published an article on Sunday accusing Eritrea of moving closer to the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, and the militant group Al-Shabaab in Somalia. It also said Ethiopia was concerned about Egypt's efforts to advance its interests in the Horn of Africa amid the long-running dispute between the two countries over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and wider geopolitical competition in the Red Sea region. According to the report, relations between Ethiopia and Egypt have evolved beyond a dispute over Nile River waters and the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam into a broader geopolitical struggle centered on influence, power, and the future balance of power in the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea. The report said Egypt has expanded its strategic engagement in the Horn of Africa, describing its growing military, diplomatic, and security partnerships with Somalia and Eritrea as part of a wider effort to contain Ethiopia's rise as a major regional power. While Eritrea, the Red Sea coastal state, accuses Ethiopia of provoking tensions and secretly plotting a new war as part of its efforts to gain sea access, Addis Ababa has made similar accusations against Asmara, claiming it seeks to fuel further internal conflicts in Ethiopia. Somaliland president says direct Hargeisa-Tel Aviv flights to begin soon. Somaliland President Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi Iro said direct flights between Hargeisa and Tel Aviv will begin soon, as Somaliland and Israel move to deepen their new relationship. In an interview with I-24 News this week, Iro said the planned air link is part of efforts to ease international travel to Somaliland and reduce dependence on regional transit routes. Somaliland has long complained that travelers to Hargeisa often face indirect routes, extra transit stops, and restrictions linked to airspace and travel procedures that remain under the authority of Somalia's federal government, the president said. Iro said direct flights would allow travelers to stop in Tel Aviv and continue directly to Hargeisa, improving access for visitors, business people, and investors. He said the route could also support travel between Somaliland and international partners, including Israel and Taiwan. The announcement comes as Somaliland-Israel relations have expanded rapidly since Israel reportedly recognized Somaliland in late 2025. Since then, the two sides have discussed cooperation in agriculture, water management, health, security, technology, and investment. Iro described Israel as a valuable and reliable friend. Israeli officials have also said Israel and Somaliland previously maintained secret cooperation in several areas and now want to expand ties in security, economic, and diplomatic fields. Somalia's federal government has strongly opposed Israel's engagement with Somaliland, saying the recognition and diplomatic ties violate Somalia's sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity. Several Arab and Islamic organizations have also condemned the opening of a Somaliland mission in Jerusalem and the growing relationship between Hargeisa and Tel Aviv. Somaliland declared independence from Somalia in 1991 and has operated with its own government, security forces, and election institutions. Somalia rejects Somaliland's claim to sovereignty and says the region remains part of the Federal Republic of Somalia. EU calls on Eritrea to investigate wartime rights violations. The European Union has called on the Eritrean government to investigate international human rights violations committed by its military during and after the two-year war in northern Ethiopia. In line with OHCHR recommendations, we call on the government of Eritrea to carry out credible, independent investigations into alleged violations and abuses of human rights and violations of international humanitarian law committed during and after the war in Tigray region of Ethiopia to provide justice to all victims, reads a statement issued by the EU this week. The bloc also called on Eritrea to end the continued practice of indefinite national/military service and arbitrary conscription, including the concerning alleged conscription of children, gender-based violence and forced labor, and respect the right to conscientious objection. Over the past weeks, Eritrea has been the subject of strong criticism from the international community for rights violations committed domestically and abroad. During the 62nd session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva on Friday, UN Special Rapporteur Mohammed Abdulsalam Babikar presented a report detailing reasonable grounds to believe crimes against humanity may still be occurring in Eritrea. Babikar said enforced disappearances, arbitrary detention, torture, and the persecution of political opponents, journalists, and religious communities remain persistent features of governance in Eritrea. He also raised concerns over alleged transnational repression targeting Eritreans abroad and called for continued international monitoring and accountability efforts. The Eritrean government rejected the findings, with its permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, Sophia Tesfamariam, describing the report as methodologically flawed and disconnected from reality. Eritrea also renewed its call for the termination of the Special Rapporteur's mandate, arguing that the country-specific mechanism has become divisive and no longer enjoys broad support among member states. Scrutiny from the UN and EU comes as Washington leans toward a policy relieving the Eritrean regime of sanctions in a bid to secure a stronger foothold on the Red Sea amid quickly shifting geopolitical events in the region. The whereabouts of those who disappeared in the past decades must be revealed. The EU notes some progress on economic and social rights in Eritrea, including related to health and education. We welcome continued efforts to reduce the prevalence of female genital mutilation and maternal mortality. The EU has welcomed Eritrea's ratification of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2025 and stands ready to support Eritrea in its swift implementation. The EU welcomes the recent OHCHR capacity building that was requested by Eritrea and encourages Eritrea to make full use of cooperation with OHCHR, including considering inviting further technical assistance and capacity building, demanded the EU in its statement this week. The bloc further slammed a lack of progress in improving living conditions and rights in Eritrea and called on the UN to renew the mandate of the Special Rapporteur. We call on Eritrea to end the suppression of civil and political rights, including arbitrary and prolonged detention, enforced disappearance and torture, to ensure humane prison conditions, to create a safe and enabling civic space, to establish independent and transparent institutions, and to ensure respect for the rule of law, reads the statement.